Hello to everyone present. It's shortly after 4, so we will get started. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge that the COTBC office is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Wasanic peoples, including the Pawquashin, Sayout, Sartlip, and Sakum First Nations, who have had a special relationship with these lands since time immemorial. As we're joining from different parts and territories, I'd ask you to take a moment to reflect on where you are joining us from this afternoon. The first peoples of these lands that we now call British Columbia have had a special relationship, and their history is long and rich. I'd like you to note that this meeting is being recorded. And I'm pleased to share that we have quorum, so I will call the annual general meeting to order. I'll start by introducing myself. I am Debbie Ruggiero, the Vice Chair and elected board member, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today for what many of you know is the final annual general meeting of the College of Occupational Therapists of British Columbia. Our agenda includes a number of updates on the work the board and staff have done over the past year. I will present the report on behalf of our board chair, Mary O'Callaghan, and then staff will proceed with the remainder of the agenda. Once these are concluded, we will proceed with the responses to the questions that have been submitted prior to our meeting. I would like to pause and recognize that this is our final AGM. This time next year, COTBC will be part of a new regulatory college. I would like to thank present board members, committee members, and staff, as well as the immense number of individuals involved with the college over the past number of years. Your legacy serves us well with the changes ahead. Before I start with the chair's report, we'd like to do a quick poll to see where participants are joining from. So on your screen, you will see a poll box where you can vote and let us know where you are joining us from this afternoon. Today, I am joining you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Insiukshin-speaking peoples of the Syilx Okanagan Nation. So I think the poll box should be coming up. Excellent.
Gonna end the poll for you, Debbie.
Yes. Excellent, thank you. Awesome. So we have people from various parts of our province. Thank you very much for letting us know. It's great to have you all here today for this momentous meeting. So COTBC governance is comprised of both appointed board members and public members and elected board members. We were pleased this year that Eileen Gowdy was appointed to the COTBC board in May 2023 as a public member. We were also pleased that 3 of our elected board members had their terms extended this past year. Due to the upcoming amalgamation in June 2024, we worked with the Ministry of Health to amend our bylaws to allow the extension of our elected board members. This will ensure that the board has stability and continuity of members as we work through this unprecedented change. Those extending their terms include Joy Parsons, Jeff Boniface, and myself. And speaking on behalf of the board, it is an exciting time to be part of governance and regulation in British Columbia. We each bring unique knowledge and skills to the board. I'd like to present our annual report. And this year's report and meeting reflects on a year of profound transformation and accomplishments, which we refer to as pathways to change. Notably, we bid farewell to Kathy Corbett, a trailblazing figure whose 20-year tenure as Registrar and CEO left an indelible mark on this college and on OT regulation in Canada. And we are very pleased to see that Kathy has joined us today, a further reflection of her service to OT regulation in BC. Earlier in the year, the Ministry of Health reaffirmed its commitment to amalgamating 11 health profession colleges into 2 new colleges by June 28th, 2024. You've probably noted that we have a specific item on our agenda entitled Amalgamation, during which a fulsome update will be provided. In April, COTBC held a strategic planning session attended by board members and staff with a focus of setting the college's priorities for the road to amalgamation. The outcomes of this dynamic engagement included a collective understanding of the current working environment, an articulation of our core values, and a commitment to prioritize actions that embody these values. On May 1st, 2023, the new competencies for occupational therapists in Canada took effect. This landmark document signifies a momentous first. Occupational therapists across our country, from entry level to experienced practitioners, now have a unified set of proficiencies. Later on in the agenda, you will hear more about our plans to support registrants in their learning and implementation of these competencies into practice. COTBC, along with 10 BC health profession regulatory colleges, launched the Indigenous Cultural Safety, Humility, and Anti-Racism Standard of Practice. This critically important event was observed with a First Nations ceremony on the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation on September 30th, 2022. As part of our commitment to Indigenous cultural safety, humility, and anti-racism, COTBC and 9 regulatory colleges surveyed their registrants. This survey was designed to explore the attitudes and perception of Indigenous-specific racism in healthcare settings, as well as to gather information on how registrants are implementing this new standard of practice. The survey has provided the board, staff, and other regulatory colleges with valuable insights, including opportunities for improvement and ways we can continue to learn and bring this important work forward to the new college. In addition, COTBC staff participated in a dialogue series as part of a research project sponsored by the BC College of Nurses and Midwives. Entitled Safe Spaces, the initiative focused on ensuring governance structures are culturally safe spaces, free from Indigenous-specific racism, colonial practices, and white supremacy. We have a unique opportunity to influence and work with the future governance and committee structures, as well as the newly formed Superintendent's Office to implement the recommendations from this report. I'm proud to be a member of the board, and I take this opportunity to thank my fellow board members who contribute their time, skills, and energy to the important work of the college to protect the public. There are many board and committee members present today, and I would like to extend my sincere thanks to each and every one of you for your valuable work. On a more personal note, I would also like to thank my fellow board members for your trust and support in my role as vice chair of the board this past year. It has continued to be a rewarding experience and an incredible opportunity for professional development. I encourage others to consider taking on an active role in the new college. This work in healthcare regulation is an amazing experience, and there will be many new opportunities ahead as we pass our work onto the new board of the new college. The work of the college is dependent also on the dedication of people who participate on the board and the college committees. Their time and talents in assisting us to achieve our mission of public protection is very much appreciated. We'd like to recognize those who continue to work on these committees, as well as those who have completed their terms this past year. Before you is a list of those individuals. Many of these volunteers have served several terms in different capacities and on sometimes different committees, demonstrating their commitment to regulation in the public interest. Thank you to all of those. I will now ask Karen Plischke, Registrar, to provide an overview of the audited financial statements.
Great. Thank you so much, Debbie. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone this afternoon. As Debbie highlighted, we've had a fun and busy year, and I have to say, on a personal note, I am humbled to be part of the COTBC team, and I thank the board, staff, and committee members for your continued work in the interest of public safety. Now I'm pleased to share the audited financial statements, and I will start with a statement of the operational revenue. So our registration fees increased by almost $50,000 as the number of registrants increased from 2022 to 2023. We've had a consistent trend of increased registrants year over year, and 2023 continued to prove true in this trend. However, our application fees decreased by approximately $5,000 as we had 17 less applications received in 2023 compared to the previous year. In addition to registration and application fees, we had a modest amount of revenue earned of approximately $400 due to other charges such as late fees. We also had a change in our contribution agreements this year as COTBC has managed 2 grants on behalf of the Ministry of Health pertaining to the funding of amalgamation. The Ministry of Health is funding the majority of amalgamation and has been committed in their financial support to date. One agreement is in the form of a $4 million amalgamation grant, and the other is a shared cost agreement of $55,000. We feel privileged as COTBC that the Ministry of Health and our fellow colleagues have entrusted us with oversight of this finances. Lastly, we've generated an increase in interest of approximately $110,000 from a GIC investment. So therefore, overall, our revenue has increased by approximately 15%. I will now move on to the next slide to review our expenditures. So you'll see that our legal expenses have decreased just shy of $83,000 compared to $103,000 from the previous year. This expense varies year to year due to the number of inquiries that we receive and the nature of the complaints that we receive as well. In addition, the previous year included shared legal costs among the regulators for the implementation of the provincial health order pertaining to the COVID-19. I also have to just indicate that it's really nice to not be talking about COVID-19 in this report out this year. So well done to everybody on success in that area. We've had an increase in our consulting charges compared to the previous year. This increase is partially due to transition costs from a director of inquiry, as well as human resources support to assist us in our search for recruitment of the deputy registrar and project manager, as well as costs for the transition from the registrar and CEO transition. Next, you will see that our credit card charges have increased slightly. This is due to increased registration fees and related charges in that area. You will see that our systems development has increased slightly due to the annual continuing competency review, ACCR, and related testing in that area. Our cost to support our projects has increased to approximately $213,000 from $153,000 in the prior year. More projects were undertaken, such as amalgamation, readiness, and strategic planning, which has guided our priorities, projects, and related expenses in this area. Lastly, we have invested in furniture and ergonomic design for our offices and remote work. So overall, our expenses have increased by 25%. I will now move on to the next slide and provide a few comments related to complaints and inquiries. We had 17 investigations in 2022 and 18 investigations in 2023. As you know, each complaint is unique and managed by our inquiry committee. We had an increase in legal costs and a decrease in inspector costs. And we do anticipate that those costs vary year to year, depending on the individual case. Of interest, the average cost of an investigation in 2023 was approximately $3,000. While this is important information, a thorough review is completed for each complaint, and cost is not a deciding factor on the investigation or related processes. Next slide, please. Thank you. This statement shows the changes in unrestricted, internally restricted, and investment in capital assets. Overall, there has been an increase of approximately $45,000. Our capital assets have increased to just over $40,000 from $5,498. Increases in this area are due to equipment purchases, including the upgrade of a new server. Our accounts payable has increased from $164,000 from $107,000. This amount is dependent on invoices received after June 30th, 2023. Items are shown as payable expenses that have been received the year after year end, but the expense properly belongs in the current fiscal year. Unrestricted funds decreased by just over $110,000. This $110,000 was moved to internally restricted funds. As such, our internally restricted funds increased by the $110,000 to almost $1.2 million. Deferred revenue increased to over $5 million compared to the $1.4 million in the prior year. While this figure represents the number of registrants who paid their registration fee for 2023 and 2024, the main increase is due to the unspent funds from the $4 million amalgamation grant from the Ministry of Health. Rest assured, the amalgamation grant is supporting a robust project plan in this fiscal, and the full grant will be required to obtain this lofty project and timeline. That summarizes the financial audit statements, and I would like to thank Janetta and Holly for your work on a successful and clean and well-prepared audit. If you can go to the final slide there, please. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to a couple of updates. Our first update is regarding the June 28th, 2024 amalgamation, and I'm pleased to introduce Jennifer Roth, Amalgamation Advisor with COTBC. Jennifer is on a part-time secondment to COTBC from the BC College of Oral Health Professionals, acronym BCCOHP. Keep trying to get that one right, Jen. And Jen has a dedicated role to support COTBC and the greater amalgamation work ahead of us. I would like to thank Dr. Chris Hacker, BCCOHP Registrar and CEO, and the BCCOHP team for giving up some of Jennifer's time that she can be part of our transformation. As many of you are aware, BCCOHP amalgamated several oral health colleges in British Columbia in 2022. We are very fortunate that Jennifer has joined our COTBC team and that we are able to lean into her leadership, knowledge, and skills of having been part of a previous amalgamation. So I know you will all enjoy meeting Jen as much as we enjoy working with her. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to you, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for having me. It's absolutely my pleasure to be here and share the information that I'm able to today. As you will have heard earlier in the presentation, or you may already know, the COTBC will amalgamate with 6 other colleges on June 28th, 2024. Specifically, these colleges will include the College of Psychologists, the College of Physical Therapists, the College of Optometrists, the College of Dietitians, the College of Speech and Hearing Professionals, and the College of Opticians. There is another amalgamation happening at the same time as this, and that will include the College of Massage Therapy, the College of Chiropractors, the College of Naturopathic Doctors, and the College of Traditional Chinese Medicine and Acupuncturists. So both will be happening on the same day. I wanted to start by providing you with some background, or as commonly referred to as the why. About 5 years ago, Health Minister Adrian Dix appointed an international expert named Harry Caton to conduct a review. There were two parts to this review. One was a review of one college in particular, and that was the College of Dental Surgeons. In addition, it was also asked that they look into the umbrella legislation that sets out how all health professionals are regulated, which is known as the Health Professions Act. To summarize, the Caton report was very critical of both the College of Dental Surgeons and the Health Professions Act. He identified serious deficiencies in the governance of the regulator and concluded that the regulator was not focused exclusively on its public interest mandate. Mr. Caton concluded, and I quote, "A complete overhaul of the way health professional regulation is conceived and delivered is required." In response to the Caton report, the Minister of Health, Adrian Dix, put together a steering committee on the modernization of health professional regulation to make recommendations on how the HPA, Health Professions Act, should be modernized. Following extensive public engagement, the committee released a report with its recommendations in August 2020. There were several themes within the modernization recommendations, namely improving governance through changes to the composition, size, and appointments process of boards, creating a new oversight body, updating the complaints and adjudication process, and improving the sharing of information between colleges. Reducing the number of regulatory colleges was one of the recommendations included in the plan to modernize the health regulatory system. I've put together a quote or pulled a quote from the modernization recommendation, and specifically the section on why amalgamations are needed. I'll read the quote for you. "As healthcare delivery shifts from solo professionals to team-based care, the regulatory framework must also evolve. Maintaining a focus on regulating single professions in isolation does not position regulatory colleges to respond to the increasing complexities of modern team-based care. A reduction in the number of regulators would support more consistent standards across the professions, enabling integrated care for patients and empowering professionals to better understand the scope of their role within a team. It was concluded that this will ultimately improve patient safety, promote better outcomes for patients, and increase the public confidence through transparency and accountability." This amalgamation should not be overly surprising, as there have been a number of amalgamations already. In September of 2020, BCCNM was established as a result of the amalgamation of the College of Nursing Professionals and the College of Midwives. A year later, in September 2021, the College of Physicians and Surgeons amalgamated with the College of Podiatric Surgeons. And in 2022, the 4 oral health colleges amalgamated into one regulatory college, BCCOHP. One of the most frequently asked questions we receive from registrants is, how will this affect me as an OT? I've put the answer here and I'll read it for you. The college will undergo a legal amalgamation as of June 28th, 2024. This means COTBC will become a new entity with a new name, with changes to the internal organizational structure. COTB staff will continue to be available to provide support and guidance to registrants before and after the legal amalgamation is complete. So quite simply, this is an organizational change that will have minimal impact on how you as an OT practice. Your scope of practice will not change with this amalgamation. How you practice in June of 2024 will be the same as how you practice in July of 2024. You will notice some changes. As mentioned, the name will change. The phone number will probably change. The mailing address and email will also probably change. But when you do pick up that phone and dial the number, you will get the same practice advisors at the other end of the line. There are two groups preparing for this amalgamation. Well, there's many groups, but there's two main groups preparing for this amalgamation. And I wanted to share some very high-level updates with you. The first group is the amalgamation office. This office has an amalgamation lead. This has been determined by the Ministry of Health. This group has set up 13 work streams. These work streams attempt to capture most of the functions happening in each of the colleges. I put some examples here on the slide. There's a complaints work stream, registration, quality assurance, governance, HR, and communications. There's many more. Each of these work streams have many of the COTB staff on them, and this ensures that the way that COTBC currently operates will be able to continue and move through successfully through to the new college. The amalgamation office is also in the process of drafting new bylaws to support these processes. The second group is the COTBC staff or office. We are committed to providing regular updates about amalgamation on our website. And if you haven't already been able to see, there is a special navigation or a button on the navigation bar specifically for the amalgamation. And there is where we commit to providing as many updates as we can on this process. The staff have been incredible in supporting the amalgamation and the work streams. As you can probably do the math, there are 14 work streams and most of the staff belong to a work stream. Karen herself also is involved in work streams and advisory work. I think it's important to pause to remember that prior to the talk of amalgamation, all of the staff's calendars were very full with regulating occupational therapists, and we continue to do that. This work is over and above that, so the staff are very busy, very competent, and a huge round of applause for the work that they do to support this amalgamation. Finally, as noted in an earlier slide, a complete overhaul of the legislation was suggested. And on November the 24th, 2022, the Health Professions and Occupations Act received royal assent, working towards implementation in June of 2025. This new act was informed by the recommendations outlined in the 2020 report, recommendations to modernize the provincial health profession regulatory framework that I noted earlier in my presentation. Based on this legislation, ongoing work among the regulators to prepare for this legislation is also occurring and will include the following: a proactive approach to protect the public from harm and discrimination, developing model bylaws for all 6 colleges. So at this point, there's intended to be 6 remaining colleges. This will lead to ensure consistency among the remaining regulators. Be integrating new governance requirements. So this speaks to board appointments and the 50-50 or public and professional split on the board. There will be no more elections. We will work towards standardizing common professional standards, as well as common regulatory processes. This is around transparency and publishing decisions. Also, developing common complaint support programs and running quality assurance programs. The new act is hundreds of pages, and we couldn't fit everything in here today, but there are 2 other interesting highlights I thought were worth mentioning. First, some of the terminology will be different. We will no longer be referring to terms such as registration and registrants, but rather to license and licensees. Another noteworthy point is there will be a superintendent's office for regulatory oversight to improve the performance of the regulators. to essentially hold the regulators accountable for the work that they do. However, despite all of this inevitable change that will arise from both amalgamation and the HPOA, the main pillars of our work will continue as a regulator. We will register qualified OTs and provide a license to practice. We will deliver a quality assurance program and investigate the complaints. I will now like to pass my presentation over to Megan Shields, Deputy Registrar, and she will speak to some of the upcoming changes as it relates to quality assurance and registration renewal in light of amalgamation timing.
Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. Hello, everybody. My name is Megan Shields, and I'm the Deputy Registrar here at the college. It's my absolute pleasure to be with you today. I'm going to be providing you an update regarding some of the changes ahead of us as it relates to the annual quality assurance requirement. As all of us know, is the annual continuing competency review, the ACCR for short, and registration renewal for 2024. I'm going to start with our plan to support registrants to integrate the competencies for occupational therapists in Canada into practice. As we heard from Debbie, on May 1st of this year, the competencies for occupational therapists in Canada took effect in British Columbia. And we heard that this was an inaugural event, a momentous first for us as occupational therapists, that we have a nationwide unified set of competencies. It's a huge milestone. 3 national organizations collaborated to create this new document. Firstly, there was the Association of Canadian Occupational Therapy Regulatory Organizations, ACTRO, the Association of Canadian Occupational Therapy University Programs, ACUTUP, and the Canadian Association of Occupational Therapists, CAOT. To support the launch of the new competencies, ACTRO created an e-learning module for national use by occupational therapists to learn about and apply the competencies. Up until now, COTBC has communicated to registrants and offered this e-learning module as a non-mandatory resource. To date, the engagement for this module remains low, and at this time, 168 registrants have completed this module. As a result, the e-learning module created by ACTRO will be utilized as a mandatory component within the 2024 ACCR to successfully implement the competencies in British Columbia. The e-learning module will replace the professional performance quiz within the 2024 ACCR for this upcoming year. The next slides will provide more information and rationale as to how we came to this decision. If you would like to get a head start on this, the e-learning module is still active and loaded within MyQAP via the COTBC website. So you could complete the e-learning module in advance of the ACCR timeline next year and get a head start on this. Rest assured, for those registrants who complete the e-learning module in advance of the ACCR timeline, you will not have to complete it twice. In addition to the e-learning module, we'll be testing out a new process for both the 2024 ACCR and registration renewal for this upcoming year. So as you know, historically, both the annual quality assurance requirement, the ACCR, and registration renewal, where you update your contact information, your employer info, and then you go to pay your annual fee to renew your license to practice, have occurred at the same time, typically launching in mid-May and closing at the end of June. This year, we are going to take a different approach. For 2024, we're going to separate out both processes as a result of the low engagement with the e-learning module, but as well due to the amalgamation timeline of June 2024. To manage amalgamation, the ACCR, registration renewal, all prior to June 30th of 2024, and to do all these things really well, we're going to be executing these activities in a new way. We're going to be asking registrants to first complete their quality assurance requirement in advance of being eligible to renew their license to practice. We are going to evaluate whether this approach is successful. And so here are the timelines that you need to know. We will be launching the 2024 ACCR on Monday, March 11th, 2024, with the deadline being Friday, April 19th. This provides registrants with a full 6 weeks to complete the 2024 ACCR. You will not be eligible to renew your license to practice until your ACCR is complete. As Jennifer mentioned earlier, the amalgamation date has been set for June 28th of 2024, which aligns perfectly with our typical timelines for registration renewal. This year, registration renewal will launch as it has in the past in mid-May on Monday, May 13th, 2024. However, we highly recommend that you complete your registration renewal by June 14th to assist college staff to both manage amalgamation timeline and registration renewal deadlines. The final deadline to complete your registration renewal remains June 30th, 2024, based on our current bylaws. But if I could make a humble request, if you could please help us out and complete your registration renewal ahead of the final deadline of the 30th, as this will significantly support us in the transition to becoming a new college entity as of June 28th of 2024. Thank you so much. I can appreciate that this new information may stimulate more questions. And so please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A section with your name and your contact details. We'll not be able to answer all questions during this AGM, but as mentioned, we will review all questions and provide answers either directly or collectively to the website. So please stay tuned for additional communication regarding amalgamation, the ACCR, and registration renewal, and likely updated FAQs on our website. We will be offering webinars in the new year as well, so please stay tuned for that. Thank you in advance for your understanding and participation in the 2024 ACCR and registration renewal processes. I'm now going to move on to the questions that were submitted in advance. And a quick note to say thank you to all the registrants who did submit their questions prior to the AGM. So those are the ones that I'm going to have time to cover today. And so the first question that I'm going to chat about was a question around how is ACOTRO supporting the BC government recognition of internationally trained professionals. And I can share that the Association of Canadian Occupational Therapy Regulation Organizations, ACTRO, assists all internationally educated occupational therapists to complete the Substantial Equivalency Assessment System, CEAS for short, to work in Canada, except for Quebec, which has their own program of review. And so COTBC supports the work of the BC Ministry and their initiatives related to internationally trained professionals through ACOTRO. We are exploring options for support through the BC Ministry. However, do not have any concrete updates that we can share at this time, but please continue to monitor the ACOTRO website for updates. The second question that came in was around amalgamation and its impact on registration renewal timelines. And so I did just speak to that, but I'll reiterate that there will be no changes to the 2024 registration renewal timeline. As I stated, the final renewal deadline remains as June 30th, based on our current bylaw requirements. However, if I can say one more time, it would be greatly appreciated if you could complete your registration renewal by the recommended deadline of June 14th of next year to support us to execute all of these essential activities really well. We do anticipate that renewal cycles will be reviewed as part of the new college. However, it's unlikely that we would have any of that information prior to amalgamation. And the third question came in regarding the HPOA. And so what I can share is that the Health Professions and Occupations Act is currently being supported through the collective work of the British Columbia Health Regulators, the BCHR. The implementation of the HPOA will be following amalgamation and is tentatively planned for June 2025. We're pleased that Karen Plischke COTBC's registrar is the vice chair of BCHR, and we are an active participant in this important work. And so I'm going to direct you to monitor the BCHR website for further details as they become available. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it back now to Debbie, our vice chair of the board, who's going to close the meeting for us.
Thanks, Megan. And thank you to all my fellow panelists for your information and updates. Apologies for those of you who couldn't get into the poll. Hopefully we can gather that information just to have an idea and a sense of where everyone's joining us from today. So as mentioned at the opening, this is the final AGM of the College of Occupational Therapists of British Columbia. We are very proud of our past and of our legacy. We will continue to support staff, board, and committees as we transition on the pathways to change. We have eager anticipation for the future as a multi-professional regulatory college and being part of modernization of healthcare in BC. Thank you to all COTBC board, staff, and committee members, both past and present, for your dedication, your expertise that you have so generously shared with the college over the years. And so it is my honor, and with great pride, I now bring the 2023 AGM to a close. Thank you.